Welcome back to the Chatelaine Baking School. This is where you will learn all the tips, tricks, and techniques that you need to become a superstar baker. We are 7 lessons in, so it is time to make a pie. Now remember how butter behaves differently when it's a different temperature, and how at room temperature it's great for cookies. Well, for pastry you want cold butter. So this is quite cold, it's still firm, just got it out of the fridge, and that's exactly right for making pastry. And in fact, I want to leave it as cold as I can. So when I go to make the pastry, I'm going to touch it just as little as possible to make sure that the butter doesn't melt while I'm making the pastry. Give it a chance to melt in the oven when it's making a pie. As I incorporate the butter into the flour, I'm going to press it and squeeze it, but not too much. And then right away, drop it. And then just go in and press and squeeze again, press and squeeze again. As the pieces get smaller, I can start to rub them a little bit, but as little as possible, just to get that butter mixed into the flour. I'm almost close here. I'm just going through to find any more big lumps, like those, that I still want to break up a little bit more. This is looking pretty good. There are still some large flakes of butter and quite a few small flakes of butter. It's really crumbly and actually it looks really uneven. Perfect. Now I'm going to add a little bit of ice water to keep it as cold as possible, just until the dough comes together. And now I'm just going to gather it into a disc. It still looks pretty dry, that's great. I want it to be just at that point where it's wet enough that it can hold together, but just barely. And now I'll wrap this and let it chill to firm up again. The pastry has chilled, so now I can roll it out. I want to dust the surface with enough flour so that the pastry doesn't stick, but at the same time not so much that it ends up making the pastry dry. A little bit of dust on top, and of course on the rolling pin. When you're rolling pie pastry, you want to keep it moving so that it doesn't stick to the counter. So that's a nice big circle, not much more than a 1/4 inch thick. Now I'll just transfer it into the dish. Plain pie plate. I like to have them really close to each other so that the pastry doesn't have to travel a big distance before getting into the pie plate. There. I'll just press it in. I have quite a bit of extra pastry here, so I'm going to trim that off using a little paring knife. And now just to crimp the edge. So I'm going to fold over the outside of the pastry and fold it in towards the middle and gently press it against the bottom piece of the pastry. So now that edge is all tucked in, and I'm just going to crimp it to make it pretty. And I like to use a couple of fingers just to squish it into little almost triangle shapes evenly around the edge of the pastry. There. Now I just need to fill it and bake it. There, a beautiful apple crumble pie. Okay, so now you've mastered pie pastry. Next up, we're going to separate eggs and make meringues. Until then, class dismissed. Oh, and for the full recipe, go to chatelaine.com.